And I'm glad to be here, and we're going to put a BP out for our dear friend, my dear brother, Reverend Sekou. We can't wait till he gets here so we can all three have a conversation with the audience, but I am happy to be here.
Yeah, no, he's on the move. He stays on the move, doing great work. It was a study out by Insight, lifting as we climb, women of color, wealth, and Americans' future, about 2 years ago, 2010. And one of the main findings was, it said, while white women in their prime working years of age 36 to 49 have a median wealth of $42,600, the median wealth of women of color is only $5. And when I first read that study, I first thought of the black church and sort of what is the role of the black church in economic development and empowerment of black women. And so I'm excited about your book. And I wanted to start with, on page 26, you say, do black women find themselves contributing their scarce resources to the life of black churches without significant assistance in return? So give me a sort of an overview of the book, why you decided to concentrate on black women, and why you look to the black church as a source for their empowerment.
Absolutely. Wow, you said a whole lot right there, but I think probably a good place to begin is sort of why I wrote the book. And you know, Jamie, I wrote the book sort of for two reasons. The first reason being sort of the national political discourse that surrounds poverty in black women, the ways in which black women are culturally represented within poverty discourse itself. And the second reason is as well the way in which women are understood, the way in which black women, particularly poor black women, experience themselves in black church spaces. So to begin with, back to the first reason, you know, right now we absolutely are in a political climate where we are talking about our national debt, right? Our national deficit as a country and where we're going to go from here. But I think what, for me, really for the last, I mean, this has been going on for decades, but for me, when I began to write this book, which started out as my dissertation back in 2008, is that I was becoming increasingly unsettled with the ways in which black women were seen as the face of poverty in America. I mean, we hear it right now, even after the election of Barack Obama, in which we're talking about our debt and our national deficit. And you have people, I'm reading this every day in Facebook comments and in articles, that if we could just get, and of course this is read poor black women, but if we could just get those women off of food stamps, then our economic woes would be solved, right? So there's a way in which when we're talking about poverty, these sort of insidious signifiers being the ways in which black women are signified upon, particularly poor black women, as indolent, lazy, pimping the system based upon their reproductive capabilities, emasculating black men, and raising criminal children, which we all know when they talk about raising criminal children, that's read poor black boys. But this entire sort of discourse, this kind of rhetoric that places the onus, the burden, and the blame on poor black women, when in fact, you know, as my book talks about, black women historically and contemporarily have a very strong record in the labor force, for example. Or another example would be when you talk about welfare, although black women continue to be seen as the face of welfare, that white women primarily make up welfare rolls in real numbers. And so it's this type of erroneous sort of rhetoric that is thrown out there that literally is trying to make treat poor black women as scapegoats in America for the problems that we're facing. So that's the first reason, is I wanted really to break this particular silence, right? And to really begin deconstructing and to expose these myths that are circulating, these cultural representations and stereotypes that are degrading, in a lot of ways subjugate and don't show the structural and institutional problems that continue to affect and contribute to the deprivation of poor black women, as well as the poor across racial categories. The second reason has to do with black churches. Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion about black churches, right? The relevancy or the irrelevancy of black churches. Is a black church dead or not? I mean, there's a lot of contestation surrounding the place of black churches in Black America, its role, as well as within larger society. And for me, one of the key reasons why I wanted to focus on the black church, and I want to be clear about something that I tried to take up in my book, and that is when at least when I talk about the black church, it is not to be made reducible to black religious experience sort of broadly, right? That there's been this idea that the black church has been sort of the sole religious institution of black folk here in America. And in a lot of ways, it's erased or dismissed or bracketed the sort of the plurality and the multivocality of black religious experience here in this nation, from Islamic expressions to many other types of expressions. And so for me, one of the key reasons, second, then why I wanted to talk a bit about the black church, number one is because if we're talking about poor black women, we're talking about, in terms of black churches, one black religious institution that is primarily constituted by working class black women.